Hello and welcome back to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
And I'm Buzz. And in this week's episode, we're looking at a particular subject I've wanted to cover for a long, long time.
I believe we have mentioned it a couple of times.
Okay, but what we're going to be talking about is the same as if you have a ship.
Okay.
And a ship has a carrying capacity. And if you go beyond that carrying capacity, then you run the risk of that ship listing, capsizing and sinking. And what we're talking about is the carrying capacity of the Earth.
If you enjoy the Now We Know show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes. This sounds like a quite serious topic, actually.
Well, it certainly is. And the interesting thing about the carrying capacity of the planet Earth is that we are not talking conspiracy theories. We're not talking about sort of hokey-cokey made-up science or anything like that. It's a real and serious problem that is actually happening right now. And that's what we're going to be discussing.
But before that...
Or a little bit of our weekly, more sort of light-hearted
Before we address the real question
stuff
in the room.
That's right. It's time for
Weird and Wonderful! So I brought in a weird and wonderful story this week.
Hit me with it, Zak. Hit me with it.
Reports of reptile in Buckinghamshire village investigated by brave Thames Valley police.
A reptile? Is this somebody lost a pet or something?
Well, officers from the South Buckinghamshire team at Thames Valley Police investigated after receiving reports of a reptile's head poking above the surface of the waters near Cholesbury, a village near Tring on the border with Hertfordshire.
Is this like,
last week?
So is this like their local Nessie then? Is it
It has got a picture.
Cryptid?
It's a crocodile.
Show. You got to show me.
There you go. There's a picture of a crocodile.
There is a. It's not one of them. Okay.
But rather than having to battle an escaped man-eater, they found it was actually a replica or decoy crocodile's head, available from as little as £6.99 online and described in some reports as a toy.
Yeah, when you showed me the photograph, I actually recognised it because I have seen them in people's ponds before. So obviously one has been placed in the lake.
Yeah, and they got called out for it, which is quite funny.
Well, it's quite funny. Yes, it's kind of taxpayers' money being paid for that. But at the same time,
I mean, they'd get paid that anyway.
I'm sure
it livens up their day, I guess.
I suppose. I'm sure the police should be doing something, really. But they could have been a real crocodile.
So, the force took it in good heart, posting on Facebook, "Crikey, it's not every day that you get send reports of a crocodile in floodwater near Cholesbury."
Wow, it's time to send
with a picture under his arm.
I wonder if that officer is now known as Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile Dun Cholesbury.
Actually, I wonder what his surname was. That would be funny if you knew what the police officer's name was. They'd call him Crocodile, whatever.
Don't be alarmed, the croc is now with us at the police station.
There you go. They'll probably put it up on the wall as a trophy. That's quite hilarious.
There we are.
So it's weird and wonderful. I like that.
It's weird.
It's kind of wonderful.
Bit silly,
but it's fun. Anyway, for the less silly and more serious subject that we're covering, and it is a serious subject, and it's going to affect everybody. It already is affecting everybody, and it's going to affect everybody in the future, and that is the carrying capacity of Earth. Now, it's serious, and this is something that us, as the presenters, have been researching, and it's something that the people out there, our listeners, our wonderful, wonderful listeners, hopefully will take away from this particular episode, and it'll raise a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I want it to raise questions, and I want people to talk about it and start thinking seriously about this particular subject.
So, at the beginning of the podcast, you used the analogy of a sinking ship, almost equatable to the carrying capacity of the Earth.
That's it. So
obviously, the Earth is Earth. You can't sink; it's in space.
Yes, it.
So
no comments.
We're talking.
No comments on the flat Earth.
More precise. That's the topic for another podcast.
So
we're talking about the resources, essentially.
Well, yes,
Sustainable resources.
Sustainable resources, sustainable living area, sustainable farming area for agriculture, everything.
Yeah.
It's all part of the same thing. Yeah. So, kind of, I don't know if this is a great analogy, but I'll throw this one in there. So, what I want you to kind of think about is if you think of a nice, big, large fish tank. Okay. A nice, big, large fish tank, and it's full of nice, clean water. And it's got a pump which is supplying oxygenated water into this tank, and it's got a pump that's filtering out any muck that's in there, because obviously you'll get detritus from the fish food and
funny word.
Detritus and fecal matter, which obviously gets in there. And if you've got any natural weeds that you've put into that fish tank that then can themselves produce algae, etc., etc. But you've got an ecosystem there which is being looked after. Okay, and let's just say you've chucked in a handful of fish. Those handful of fish are absolutely loving it because they've got fresh, clean water. It's oxygenated water. It's good, clean water. It's being filtered.
It is the Garden of Eden.
It is this utopia for fish.
Yeah.
Not, I must admit, I'm going to say I am not a lover of putting fish in tanks. Okay, so I'm going to say that straight away. I don't agree with people keeping fish in fish tanks unless it's a species which is having to be saved from extinction, for example. They need to breed it, and the same goes for birds. Birds shouldn't be in cages. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But anyway, you've got this fish tank, and now the fish need to be fed. So let's just say that whoever the fish tank belongs to is giving the fish X amount of food per day. And let's just say that X amount of food has an excess, and that excess ends up, the fish are nicely fed, and they go, I can't eat this excess, and the excess goes to the bottom of the tank, and then it gets filtered out and everything else. So they've got lots of what we call resources, and they're doing well. And then you introduce more fish, or let's say the fish in the tank, they breed themselves and get more fish, okay?
Yep.
Don't worry about it, because we've got an excess of food going in there, so that can sustain the extra fish in there, and everything is still working fine. But it's going to be crowded. But this continues, and the fish tank fills up with more and more fish. Now, what you're going to get?
And there's no let up to this.
No, so you're going to get the tipping balance where suddenly you've got so much fecal matter in the water, so much detritus in the water, the filter is getting blocked up and not being able to deal with this, so the water is getting dirtier and dirtier and less oxygenated, and your fish are exceeding the amount of food that they are getting on a daily basis given to them.
And that excess is suddenly depleted.
If for example, in this example, they are only getting a handful of food a day.
Despite if there's an increased number of them.
Despite if there's an increased number of fish, that amount of food doesn't change, then suddenly all those fish are going to be in a position where they're not getting enough food to go around, and it's all, the whole ecosystem, what was basically a paradise, as you said, this utopia, has now just turned into a dirty, nasty cesspool.
And that's when the piranhas come out. And to start fighting for the resources. Taking a kind of a step there into that kind of prepping dystopian society.
I don't think I planned any piranhas being in this particular example, but yeah. But what I'm painting a picture of...
Peaceful fish turning into piranhas.
No, what I'm painting a picture of is when you have a balanced ecosystem and it becomes imbalanced, then you have problems.
Yeah.
And that's happening on planet Earth as it is, because planet Earth is our spaceship, and we are all its crew.
Passengers.
Yeah, humanity is in command, you could say, because it's the human species which is having an effect on the planet, which obviously we're getting told on a daily basis that we should be trying to decrease our carbon footprint and to try and recycle and have the least impact on the planet and try and slow down global warming and all these things which are real and are happening. So when it comes to the carrying capacity of the planet, that is again a big issue, because we are currently at 8.1 billion people on the planet.
Wow, I can remember when it was 7.
Yeah. Well, okay. I've got a lot of notes here, so if you hear me rustling paper, then that will that's my notes. I've got pages and pages of notes here.
That's all right.
Okay, so to put this in perspective, 300,000 years ago, okay, it's estimated that the maximum population on the planet was around 10,000 people, or humanoids.
Wow, that is quite the perspective there.
Okay, but now this is the thing, and it would have taken around 35,000 years for that number to double when you consider births, deaths, and expansion.
Wow.
That's a huge. So to get from 10,000 to 20,000 population, 35,000 years.
That sounds mad.
Okay, and I double checked these figures on several different websites just to see that's
Reputable sources.
Yeah, reputable sources. Now, going on census that was taken in 1930 to 1974. Okay, so this is from 1930.
Yep.
Just before Second World War to 1974, the whole Earth, the Earth's population doubled. So where it took 35,000 years to double, it literally took from 1930 to 1974.
So even despite World War II?
Yes.
Wow.
It doubled.
Crikey.
Okay. Because obviously you have births and deaths, and that you either have a stable population. So the births are being neglected by the deaths. So people passing away, getting older and passing away, and people being born, and you get obviously infant mortality and things can balance out and give you a stable population.
Yeah.
But the period we're living in now in human history, it's unstable.
Yeah.
People are living longer.
Well, yeah, that's the thing we're trying to strive to kind of do.
New researches in medical science, people are living longer and being looked after longer, and more children are being born. And yes, children around the world die of malnutrition and starvation and
all sorts of things,
all sorts of different kind of diseases. But the fact is, more and more children are being born.
Yeah.
And so you're filling up
the space. Before you've emptied space.
So, but then we have what you said right at the beginning, which is all about the resources. Now, talking about...
We're going to the Thanos analogy now.
Well, talking about the... we'll leave Thanos out of it for the moment.
Okay.
Talking about the carrying capacity of the planet. So there was a big question you need to ask me there.
And that is... What is the carrying capacity of the Earth?
Right, that is a very good question to ask me.
Yes,
okay?
Yes, it's one of the main points of this podcast.
So the carrying capacity of the Earth is like, how can I say this? It's very, very much across the scale, depending on how you distribute the resources. But working on the principle that all the resources of the planet Earth are being used in the same capacity around the world as they are now, we will reach the carrying capacity of the planet when it gets to basically 10 billion people. Now, 10 billion, it's estimated that the planet will reach 9.7 billion in 2050.
Ouch.
Which is basically, 26 years from now.
Yep, that's within our lifetimes.
And by 2080, it will be around 10.5 billion.
Oh dear.
Because you're having that kind of effect with, the more you have, every time you double it, you get even more.
Yeah.
It's like putting grains of rice on a chessboard. You put one grain of rice on the chessboard square, then on the next square you double it, you get 2 and 4 and 8. But by the time you get to the end, it's a huge, colossal amount.
It's an entire bag.
It's an absolute colossal amount. So the carrying capacity, and those out there listening to this, is guesstimate. The best guesstimate for the resources that we have is around about 10 billion people.
Yeah, because we don't really have any kind of precedent for this, do we?
We're not far off that. However, I say it can vary with the different studies that have been taken. So I looked into lots of different studies on this. So out of these studies, they were progressive in how many studies agreed the same results. Yeah?
Right.
And looking at these studies, 20 studies agreed that the carrying capacity of the planet is 8 billion.
So we're already there.
14 of the studies all agreed it would be 16 billion.
Ooh.
Okay. 6 of the studies said 32 billion, and 7 studies 64 billion. And some studies say it could be as much as 1 trillion. So you're kind of saying, okay, Buzz, so why are you saying that we've got a problem here? Because obviously 10 billion is a long way away from 1 trillion people.
Yeah.
But that's the rub, really, because in the world, everybody lives differently and consumes resources at a different rate all over the world.
Yeah. I kind of get what you're saying. I kind of get where this is going.
Yeah. So, on average, a first world middle class person, so somebody that would be, just an average middle class person in the UK or in Europe or America, for example.
Okay. Average Joe.
Just an average Joe that has maybe, they work, they're renting a house or they buy a house and they can afford to go on holiday, that kind of, somebody that is comfortable.
Joe Blogs.
Not like in the rich factor. You're not upper classes or super rich or anything like that, but you're not scratching around trying to, just
scrounge a living.
Make a living. You're the middle classes,
yes.
Okay? So if you're average middle classes, each individual person consumes 3.3 times the subsistent level of food. Okay?
And you say subsistence, what's that mean?
The amount of food that you would need just to survive on.
Okay.
And a staggering 250 times the subsistence level of water per person.
Right.
So each person uses 250 times the amount of water that they would need just to survive. Okay.
Right. Because that is the thing. It's you just need 2 litres of water a day to actually survive.
Yeah, but when you spread it out on an average of everybody, with the amount of people that have baths, showers, cooking,
all this luxury living stuff,
washing cars,
has pool,
has a pool, waters their garden, whatever, in the first world we use loads and loads of water.
Yeah.
And then in other countries in the third world, then some people are desperate. You see the adverts on TV all the time for having fresh water. So where you have the issue with the carrying capacity of the planet is that you have all these different class structures, and everybody consumes such a varied amount of stuff. And I was talking to a friend of ours the other day who actually works at a supermarket, and they were saying, for example, in the UK, that the supermarket, they can have a damaged pack of food, which is perfectly 100% okay. It's got the tiniest dent in it or something, and they're throwing skips of food away on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And then if you then times that by the amount of supermarkets you have in the UK, across the world, in places where the regulations say that that's what you got to do, it's absolutely.
But I suppose it's the
millions of tons of food.
I suppose it's the idea that
landfill.
Like the value of that item or whatever it is suddenly is then non-existent when it is damaged. That's kind of the eyes of the store.
I think that each individual store has kind of like a losses thing where they expect X amount of losses through either damaged goods or even these days through theft from shoplifting and things. And it's kind of written off, and then that cost is then calculated and added on to all the other food that we pay for to counteract that loss from the stores.
Wow.
But the point is that there is a huge amount of resources in the first world that just end up going into the landfill, into the bin.
Wasted resources.
Whereas other people in the world are starving.
Yeah.
Or desperate for fresh water. And so if you argue the point of if everybody on the planet, regardless of who they are or where they're from, has a right to live at the same standard as every other
person on the planet,
let's say middle class person,
okay,
you would then completely deplete the world's resources incredibly rapidly to try and elevate people up to that level across the whole planet. Don't forget, we're talking an average middle class. There are still all the upper.
Yep.
There are people up there with their luxury yachts at Monaco.
Money
you know,
is no object.
Yeah, they all pay £43,000 for a singular plane ticket to take them somewhere, you know.
Or a glass of glacial water.
Yeah, a glass of glacial water, you know. Yeah, it's just ridiculous amounts of money for the super rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's trying to get your mind behind trying to get the finite resources of the planet and say, okay, we can't keep consuming them at such a rate. But if you say to somebody who lives and is used to that kind of middle America, middle English lifestyle, that actually in order to lift up everybody else in the world, that you are going to have to take a serious dip in your
Nobody's going to want that.
living
That's your problem.
standards, and all the super rich people are going to have to take a super dip in all their living standards.
Which they're not going to want to
So
do.
that's where we get figures like the 1 trillion, because that would be if you're living in sort of some kind of dystopian future
Yeah.
where everybody is eating Soylent Green.
I was wondering when that was going to come.
Everybody is wearing, you know, I don't know, orange one-piece suits, and you all live in your tiny little cubicle rooms.
Careful, you're bringing up Fallout now.
You know, I mean, the point is, in order to distribute, so all of the resources of the planet are distributed equally, you would have to completely and utterly turn the whole of society across the world on its head from what it is at the moment.
And like, if only there was like a switch to make everyone okay with that choice. But there isn't.
There isn't. So in a
There's never going to be.
If in a hypothetical world, if everybody switched to being equal, a huge amount of people on the planet would actually get raised up in their living standards. A huge amount of people would be lowered in their living standards, but still have a roof over their head, still have food in their stomach, still have clothes on their back. Yeah?
Yeah.
But people who say, oh, I want to have the big gas guzzling car, or I want the $200,000 electric
Boat
4x4 or the big, you know, you say no, you can't have that. But the thing is, we don't live in that kind of world.
No.
And you know, as well as people saying, shaking their fist and saying, you know, I hate the capitalist society and everything. Yeah, capitalism does have its issues, but also within the capitalist society, for every, say, business owner that has started a business and from that business has now managed to employ people, and because
has grown it from the ground up,
because he or she has grown it from the ground up, and those employees have now got jobs that didn't exist before, and that allows them to buy their own houses or to afford their rent, and they themselves have a quality of life which allows them to go on holiday, maybe go to the Maldives or things, you know,
etc.
You're not all that happens legitimately. You still have behind the scenes all the people that make money out of illegal gambling, for the world slave trade and sex trade, drugs, money laundering. All those people make gobbling all this money and using resources. So you've got to also convince all those to suddenly overnight become, you don't need all this money.
Exactly.
You don't need to be driving around in your Ferraris and everything, and you know.
Well, their response to that is going to be, well, I earned this.
Yeah, they're not going to be interested, are they? No. So
they're going to tell you to take a hike, Mike.
Exactly. So what we have is, on a social level, nobody is going to bend.
Nobody's going to budge. Yeah.
Nobody's going to budge from what they
have
are happy
and want.
with.
Yes.
You know, and that's the big problem. So we again end up back to this figure of 10 billion people being the tipping point where the resources are starting to get very, very stretched. Now, we add into that the other issues that mankind is causing at the moment, such as, of course, the big one, global warming. I mean, this, in fact, today on the news, it was officially stated that every single day since the beginning of the year, the sea temperatures have increased every single day.
Jeez.
Okay, and that this April, on the case of the whole planet, was the warmest April on record.
That seems to be such an ongoing trend. It's like it's always the hottest day, week,
Exactly.
month there's ever been.
And as we speak,
And we keep hearing this.
As we speak, there are severe droughts in certain parts of the world and huge amounts of flooding in other areas. So people are literally getting pushed off their land. Agriculture is getting destroyed because the land is basically, you just can't farm it anymore. Places are becoming barren that you can't live there anymore. So the inhabitable amount of land on the planet is decreasing. Now, you've also got to be able to feed everybody. And look what happened when Russia invaded Ukraine. Suddenly, Ukraine being like the breadbasket of the world, all the grain exports ceased.
Yeah.
And
massive supply problems.
Have massive supply problems. And in Africa, they have a saying where I think it's bread is life. And they were having huge issues because they weren't getting grain supplies. So you're going to have issues where as the population expands and you've got to home people got to have somewhere to live, but then you have to find places to grow the amount of food required to feed all these people. That could bring us into that kind of discussion, that grey area of veganism over being an omnivore or vegetarian, because people. It is a fact that if everybody stopped eating meat, all those animals that currently are being farmed would be surplus to requirements. So you're either going to eat them all up to finish them off, or nobody's. I mean, what farmers are going to care for a herd of 500 cattle that they've got to afford the feed for, and they can't sell the meat because nobody's eating meat anymore.
Exactly.
So you're going to have an initial problem of winding down that. But if you wind that down, because a huge amount of land mass is basically just there growing food for the animals that we're going to consume, and the animals themselves are on land that you're not growing arable crops on. So if you stopped eating meat, then you would gain lots of land which you could grow crops on. But as global warming is creating issues with severe weather events, flood, I think last year just in England, loads of crops failed.
Exactly, yeah.
Because it was too hot and too dry, things like this. And then you've got other factors in just growing. If the whole of the population of the planet is going to go over to not eating meat but going to go over to more of a sort of a vegetarian approach, then you still have to fertilize.
What a horrible thought.
Well,
Personal opinion.
I'm not at all into factory produced massed meat plant type meat. If I eat meat,
the stuff that always professes to be vegan friendly, and it's like,
we're not going to get into that vegan discussion because that is a big discussion about veganism.
It's a podcast unto itself.
Yeah, we'll cover veganism, but the meat I eat.
Do you know any vegans?
I do know some vegans, and
I have to get them in for a guest.
Usually it's because they will tell you immediately that they're a vegan. Before
Anyway,
controversial. So if you went over to a vegetable-based diet, a huge amount of the what do they call it in products when you're buying something which is not using human-made fertilizers? It's organic. That's it. So you go to a shop and you can buy organically grown food. Yeah. And the vegans probably love the organic. And most of it is grown using animal fertilizers, bless them. So it's horse manure, cow manure, pig manure, ground up bone meal.
Isn't that using the animals though?
Don't tell the vegans that, but yes, they're eating food which is basically being fertilized by waste products from animals.
And don't even talk about the water.
Let's not go there. Anyway, so
I'm pushing buttons.
So then, if you're not going to use any kind of animal fertilizer, you've got to then. I think you can use sort of legumes, types of things like peas and beans. In them, they grow and add nitrogen to the soil. But you're going to have a big rethink of how you are going to grow crops across the planet to supply enough food
for everyone.
And that obviously doesn't take into account the fact that as we have the expanding population, you're going to decrease in the amount of land that you can live on. No, not you live on. You've got to live somewhere. So
Yeah.
where all these people are living is decreasing the agricultural land.
Yeah.
But also, agricultural land does not help for biodiversity, because what they do is they go down and cut down rainforests to grow their
Palm oil.
or to make the tofu, such as soya. So you've got the soya plantations, and as you say, palm oil, and you're stripping away natural habitat and basically the amount of species which are becoming extinct and being pushed out of their natural habitats. So
Yeah, but the world isn't getting any bigger.
No, and so as we get global warming and we're losing coastal areas, or we're losing areas because they're becoming too hot, so you now can't grow any crops there because there's no water, and or you're getting these. I mean, in Mediterranean last year we had the wildfires and everything, and that rocketed the price up of olive oil and olives and things, because obviously you get these natural disasters. So what you're going to have is this really big problem on literally just feeding everybody, let alone all the other types of resources that humans require. So
as like a fundamental human right.
Well, yeah, or what we consider to be. I mean, people are not going to want to take a dip in their living standards to help somebody they're never going to meet across the other side of the world.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen. In fact,
humans are incredibly selfish.
You would get riots on the street if it was suddenly said, we got to, by law, enforce that actually everybody's going to go on ration books now, in order that we can feed everybody across the planet, and that we can lift people up to the same level of living standard.
Yeah, everyone is all for equality until it affects them.
Yeah, and that is the big problem, because as it stands at the moment, we are just running blindly into this. No politicians that I've noticed are talking about world population, or should I say world overpopulation.
But could you imagine if they did? What would be the reaction there?
Well,
they would be
shunned. The first question is, well, what do you suggest we do about it? I mean, you can't go to the extremes of, goes back to what you said at the beginning, the Thanos initiative where you click your fingers and half the population disappears.
Logan's Run.
You can't say, okay, you get to the age of 40 and yes, you've got to go to the carousel. That's just not going to happen.
Soylent Green.
Yeah, or the fact is that all the areas that
people need food. Let's make the people food.
Everything that is all the areas that grow food, and again, you mentioned Soylent Green. In that one, fresh meat was just something that was, because all the animals had gone. All the people only saw tigers or deer on film because they're all gone. Yeah. Because of natural destruction of the planet's natural resources and their natural habitats. So
that's when it goes over to protein blocks from Snowpiercer or protein farms from Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, and they're already talking about, okay, we've
got to eat the insects.
We can switch over and everybody can eat the locusts and eat the
Have you ever eaten a locust?
Yeah, we went to a party where they had locusts and I think mealworms as well.
Somebody did dare me to eat a locust once, and I did.
They're just like a crunchy carapace, really.
Yeah, it didn't really have much taste. It was just like crispy.
But you're not going to get vegans eating insects.
Grief! No. Imagine the riot. Then you'll get riots.
Even more riots if they know that the Soylent Green is coming on board. So we are on this cusp of literally in our lifetime.
Potentially.
Well, it's not a potential.
High possibility.
I mean, the only things can sort of tip the balance, if you like, would be another major, and I mean major, it'd have to be a major pandemic which wipes out a huge amount of population.
We are COVID-29.
Or, I don't want to even have to think about it, but if there was a major world war where, again, huge amounts of population were wiped out through basically warfare.
But then from the 1930s to the 1970s, at the beginning of the podcast, you said that the population actually doubled.
This is true because although the wartime losses were taken into consideration in that calculation, and that's why we're so rapidly every year it's increasing. So it's
and we are striving again, as you said, to live longer.
Frankly, I love life. I haven't lived.
I love life. Life likes me. Scrooge there.
Yeah, a bit of Scrooge. So for all those people listening to the podcast, we want to live a long and comfortable and healthy life.
But we also want our
creature comforts.
Well, that said, and beyond us, like children,
you want your
grandchildren, etc., 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 to live in this happy world too.
Exactly.
We don't want this kind of post-apocalyptic kind of totalitarianistic dystopian society to suddenly just hit us all in the face.
Yeah, something's got to happen. We're going to have to, cut back. I mean, the thing is, when you've got if you want to call it the first world, consuming loads of consumer goods or all the luxuries, if you like, who's going to turn around and tell everybody they've got to take a big hit in that if you're going to allow the rest of the population of the planet to pull themselves out of poverty and to have an equal bite of the apple?
Yeah. Now, I suppose so far this is kind of sounding almost a bit ranty about humanity in this podcast, but do we have any actual solutions? Is there a silver bullet to this?
Right. Well, that is a good question, because personally, I've kicked the figures around. Mm-hmm. I've looked through factors of births, deaths, and the fact that it's unstable in that it isn't keeping our population stable. Mm-hmm. We are continually increasing in population, so that's one thing that's out of the window. In the fact that we are getting places, less and less land for people to inhabit, that isn't going to have a knock-on effect by taking up agricultural land. And also the fact that if you can't really expand agricultural land indefinitely, because you are then destroying all those natural habitats for the wildlife that
let alone habitable spaces.
Yeah. You've got to have enough food to feed everybody. You've got to have all the resources to support everything. I don't really see a silver bullet.
Well, I suppose looking to it's not really an extreme, it's a thing that's also happening. Potentially, we're talking about the analogy of we are on a ship. Could it be that we need to head off into the ocean to find some more resources?
Okay, so
I'm talking about leaving the planet.
You're talking about outer space being the ocean. Right.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Analogy.
Yeah, analogy. I got you. Well, yes. I mean, if you look like that, but and you do have obviously the SpaceX program where they keep pushing the new spaceship, the SpaceX spaceship, which supposedly can carry 100 people, and they are talking about obviously building a moon base, but I do not see how in any major way that's going to, and again going back to the Blue Origin philosophy of taking all engineering off the planet in order to make the planet the paradise it should be. I can't see it happening by 2050 / 2080.
No.
Not in a huge way that you can say, okay, we've now taken all engineering and everything, all manufacturing is off planet. We're not taking any more mining resources from the planet because we're mining everything off planet. We've got huge biospheres in space growing food.
Elysium.
That's
a
it.
massive it would ring around the planet.
Unfortunately, I don't want to bring up a conspiracy theory at the moment, but there is one that I've sort of heard it come up a couple of times, which is called the Exodus Initiative, which is talking about the super rich. The whole point is that they can see the calamity coming, so that's why they're desperately trying to launch all these rockets and get off planet to a moon base where if you've got the money you can go, and then the world can basically burn
Ouch.
And then they can come back when it...
That's a rather pessimistic view, isn't it?
We can look into that one another time, but I don't think that I'd love to see mankind go off into space. I'd love to see. I don't think I want to live forever, and I'd love to see that happen. But in the immediate future, I really don't see that that's going to make a dent in what we're talking about, the problems of overpopulation when it comes to the carrying capacity of the planet and how you divide up the resources in order to make sure that everybody can have a sustainable an equal opportunity to a comfortable life. Yeah.
So it's a tricky conundrum. There isn't really like well, again, we've covered like the whole epidemic, potentially war, mass events where like the population would suffer a massive dent. That's kind of your only like.
That's they would be the only. I wouldn't call war natural, but they would be the only sort of like an asteroid from space or something. I don't know. I mean, we're not talking doomsday prepper.
No, and we're not. We don't want these things to happen.
Well, that's the thing. That's the rub.
Yeah.
Okay. The rub is everybody, and I wish this for everybody. I want everybody in the world to not be hungry, to not be thirsty, to have a roof over their heads, to not be enslaved, to not be oppressed. Don't want any war. I want everybody just to
be happy,
and to enjoy life with their families, and just basically have food in their bellies, clothes on their back, and have a fair crack of the whip like everybody else.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
No.
And I can't change it. You know, and I don't think there is a will out there. And wherever there would be a will to change things, there will be also those people that can see how they can make a fast buck out of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because even in even in a socialist society where everybody is meant to be equal and everybody is given the same amount of money, and they put the same amount of work in to basically say we're doing it for my brothers and sisters in this socialist society, you've still got people that will be living in mansion houses, eating caviar, looking down on the people, a bit like with at the film Animal Farm, where they're saying, oh yes, but we are organising all this for you, brothers and sisters, you know. But in fact, there's always going to be people, because it's human nature, that will take I'm going to say take the piss and try and get more out of it than everybody else.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Basically, when it comes to the capitalist side, that's how it works. You want to make the newest phone, the newest gadget. You want to sell it to people. You need this. Yeah. It doesn't matter if children have been digging out, mining these absolutely disgusting resources out of open mines in some third world country, so you can have your up-to-date electric car. You know, that doesn't matter because you want this.
Yeah.
You need this. You know?
This makes your life better.
If you don't have this, your life isn't better. You know. So that's the commercialism of capitalism, and so it comes right back to the whole point of the subject of this discussion is the carrying capacity of the planet is, on the best estimates, 10 billion people, and we're going to be hitting that around 2050 or just after. And that means resources are going to be really, really getting stretched. And that means if there's any issues with supply and demand, with any kind of extreme weather events that hit agriculture and things, we stand to have a lot of issues in the very near future. And I really don't know what to do about it, personally.
Does anyone out there in the cosmos on the planet Earth have any suggestions? Please let us know.
I would say if I came from a practical prepper's perspective...
we're going to prepping now.
I would say you can only kind of look at life from the perspective of yourself and those around you, your family.
It's basic survival, isn't it?
And just do what our grandparents and great-grandparents did. Prep, have some stores, and then if there is a blip... If there is a supply issue, if you have to get by for a month or two, you can. And you can ride the wave with less hassle than perhaps you would have had prior to that. But yeah, I think that when it comes to the carrying capacity of the planet, it's
a major problem.
Major problem that nobody is talking about. As I say,
and that's why we are.
And that's and I'm going to repeat myself, but no politician will ever discuss it because it's not a vote winner. They haven't got an answer to it, and they don't have to have an answer for it because within the next 20 years they will be retired on their nice politician's pension.
Yep.
You know,
You got
and leave it to the next lot to deal with. You know? So until we get to a point where you're walking around.
Crunch point.
To get to a crunch point, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe the listeners have got some insights in how we can prevent the human race from literally sort of running down this dark alley.
It'd be really interesting to spark some conversations there.
And is there really any solution, or is the only solution crash and burn and begin again like the phoenix from the flames? Which leaves us with
Wisdom of the Week.
And this particular wisdom of the week is quite poignant, I think.
You've brought one in.
I've got one, yes.
Okay.
And this one, I'm going to quote Gandhi.
Ooh.
Gandhi said, "The world has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed."
Ooh. Deep. And very, very poignant to this podcast.
Very poignant. Yeah, so if everybody were to have the same and to rein it in a bit, we can get through and keep going. But that isn't going to happen, I doubt. Too many greedy people. Too many greedy people.
And that's why we have preps.
That's why we prep. Anyway, that's a podcast for another day.
So that's the end of episode 99.
99. That can mean only one thing. Our next episode is going to be the big
100. Triple digits.
Wow.
We made it after 2 years.
We've made it to the triple digits.
Huzzah.
So we're going to have a special episode.
We are.
And we're not going to tell you what it's about.
Stay tuned for that.
But can we reveal what's going to be different about it?
We can.
Okay, so we're going for our 100th podcast episode, and we're actually going to be recording it on video.
Yes, so all you
YouTubers,
lovely listeners out there, you will be able to watch the episode on YouTube with our pretty faces all over the screen.
Exactly. So we're going to have our first full recorded video podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's still going to be there on all the audio channels for everybody to listen to as per normal.
Yes. So stay tuned for that.
Yay!
Next week.
Next week. 100. Maybe we should get a birthday cake. I don't know.
Yes. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes. That's a big...
It's the end of the world as we know it.
Goodbye from Zak and Buzz.
Zak and Buzz, yes. Goodbye.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck,
Live
everybody.
long and prosper. You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Keep up to date with everything ZWP on Facebook and Instagram, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. And remember to join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access content and exclusive episodes.